guys, thank y'all so much for joining us today for the message, either on the app or on our website. If this ministry has been a blessing to you, I would encourage you to join us in the process of not only growing the ministry, but growing our ability to reach this community. And one of the things that we're doing right now is actually beginning our student ministry building expansion to better reach those that we already have coming now, as well as the people who will be coming in the future. And so if you'd like to give today, you can either do that on our app or you can do it also on our website. And for your convenience, you can also set it to reoccurring if that's something you'd like to do. Hope you enjoy the message. Have a wonderful day.
And when you think about Orphan Sunday, most people would say, I've never heard of Orphan Sunday, so I haven't thought about Orphan Sunday. Well, November is basically the month in the year where they highlight, and as a church, it's either on the first or second Sunday of November that we usually recognize that, hey, you know what, there's a lot of children out there who don't have it nearly as good as you, even if you think you have it bad. For instance, there's 153 million, that's a loose number, but nonetheless a close number, of children in the world who are orphans. Most of those impoverished, right? Children make up 1/3 of the world's population, yet they make up half of those who are impoverished in the lowest levels of economic health, malnutrition, so on and so forth. Many children all across the world die from things that we very easily go into a pharmacy and say, my child has diarrhea, I need to get some. Children are still dying from malaria, from diarrhea, from all types of things that for us in the West, we're just like, well, that's an easy fix. Okay, so we've got to recognize the bubble that you live in, even if you think that your life isn't so easy, and maybe it's not. But I want to recognize there are a lot of people out there, especially children, what we're talking about today, who need someone like us to not only care, but then to step out and do something about that. And when you hear the number 153 million, I don't know about you, but that number is overwhelming. Like, who is little bitty me in little bitty town USA? Who am I to do anything about that, right? And a lot of times, if you can't see a significant difference, you're just like, I'm not going to do anything at all, right? It's like the dog that you're going to see come in December that's going to be looking mangy and really sad, and they're going to play Sarah McLachlan, and you're going to see it on the channel, and you're going to change the channel really quickly because you don't want to feel bad about the dog who's starving, even though they played that dog like 20 years ago, and you know it's dead, right? You know that that dog's not still alive. Sorry, I didn't mean to hurt anyone's feelings. But what I'm getting at is, like, when you get overwhelmed by emotion like that, you do want to do something, but you just don't know how. You don't feel like that the difference that you can make will even be remotely significant. And what I want to say to you today is that the seeds that are planted are the same ones that grow into the massive oaks that we have the shade that we sit under today. You understand what I'm saying? The acorns or the seeds, whatever it is. But when we plant in, God brings an increase. And when we think about some of the things that God is concerned about and God cares about, one of those in particular is the fact that God cares for the least of these. You know what I'm saying? So we need to recognize that God cares and God is concerned. It says in Psalm 68, verse 5, He is a father to the fatherless and protector of the widows is God in His holy habitation. James 1:27, religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. When we start getting an idea of what is God passionate about, what does God concern Himself with? You see, God saw us in absolute need, in absolute agony, in a sin-filled world, and He did not just say, well, I hope things get better. No, God sent His one and only Son. He did something about it. For God so what? He so loved the world. Now for us, we're over here like, okay, well, we do. We love the world. We do want to make a difference. We know that we are what? We're salt. We know that we're light. We know that our good deeds are seen and that other people say, well, why do you do what you're doing? And why do you care about these people? And why do you even concern yourself? And the answer is what? That we might say that it's our Father in heaven who first and foremost loved us, and therefore we're able to love other people, and the grace of God that's been poured out on us, and His generosity, which He has exemplified for us, it tells us we're to do what? Imitate Him. And you're still sitting here saying, yeah, I agree with all those things, but I can't do anything about that. Like, I'm not going to be able to fly to Africa and adopt a child. I mean, you know, this is good, but this isn't me. And so what we've tried to do is bring it right here to you. Is to bring and to be motivated and to be inspired by what God is already doing in the lives of so many of the people that you're just sitting next to Sunday after Sunday, going to small groups with, enjoying life, doing activities with, and not even recognizing that God has been stirring in their hearts and using a Sunday just like today. 1 out of 52 Sundays, just one. And you're saying, well, that can't make that much of a difference. I want to say this to you. A seed planted today in good soil absolutely can make a difference. All we're asking you today is, what is your next step? And you to pray about that. And when you pray about that, what has God asked us to do? God has not commanded us to produce the result. God has commanded us to be obedient to what He has told us to do. We don't produce the result. We can't control the result. We can be faithful. And that's why today, to me, is a day of celebration. That's why we set aside a Sunday to talk about adoption, because I don't know how many of y'all know this, but we have families in our church who have adopted. We have one family in our church in particular who's adopted 4 kids, okay? I mean, we have families in our church right now who are helping in the foster care system. We have families today who are serving in CASA, which we're going to share a little bit more about this morning in detail, because some of you are like, I don't even have a clue what CASA is. Well, okay, neither did I a year or so ago, okay? This is where it starts. So hearing something and maybe just being pricked in your heart, maybe just made aware for the first time that there are actually things that I can do, and that I'm not going to despise the days of small beginnings, because small things in the Lord's big hands can be great things in the future if we're only willing just to say, God, I'll trust you. God, I'll step out. I'll be faithful to what you've called me to do. Time and time again, I get blown away and inspired by our people inside of our church, within our community, who are coming up with ideas that absolutely just blow my mind, because I never would have thought of them. I mean, we have some small groups that go to the hub once a month right now and are just actively serving and loving on the homeless within our community. I mean, I would say Shreveport's definitely part of our community. It's close, right? There's people still today who are seeking opportunities to love on kids and to be there and be available for them, because, again, your home and your environment, as we're about to see on a video we're going to show, maybe it's awesome. And you need to thank Jesus every single day that He's been so gracious and so kind. But I want to say this to you. God has not been so gracious and so kind for no reason. God has blessed you to definitely be a blessing to other people, that you would overflow the grace that has been poured into your lives. And again, there are very small ways that make very significant differences when you are just faithful to give unto the Lord and listen to His voice and just say, Lord, I don't fully understand it, but I will trust you, and I'll step out. Y'all check out this video of some of the things that God is doing within the hearts and lives of some of the people within our church.
Hi, my name's Elisa Brogdon, and I oversee Foster Family Connection here at FCC. We officially launched last year at Orphan Sunday, and your response was overwhelming. Your donations enabled us to purchase supplies to fill bags to be delivered to children in their first night of foster care. In addition to that, we've been able to provide meals and services including clothes, car seats, diapers, and even beds to families that provide foster care in our community. In the last year, we established our foster care clothing closet. And this year, our goal is to get the word out about the services we provide. That's our next step. What's yours?
I'm Linda McClellan. I got involved in CASA about a year ago. I went through the training. We had a program at church, and I thought, well, that's something I can do. And because of my love of children, I especially like to work with teenagers. I was a 4-H agent, and then I served as a foster parent myself and then adopted. So I felt like at my stage of life, this would be something I could do. I have had some challenges. I think one of them is that right now she is in a sort of a downward spiral, and that's very disheartening. But at the same time, this happens with children that go through the system. I feel like I've been able to encourage her in her schoolwork. She says things like, I hate algebra, and I say, oh, algebra's your friend. So I've tried to be a positive influence in that situation. And as far as CASA in general, you do have reports. And I think sometimes I have to make myself do those you record every phone call and things, but there's a electronic system, so it's not a major issue. So I do try to stay on the top of that too. And I think it's important that you make the visits and the contact that you need to. When the child views you as an advocate, you need to be there for them and aware of the things that are going on in their life. So I try to do that. So it does have some challenges, but I have found it to be very rewarding.
My name is Mindy Siegford, and I'm a DeSoto Parish CASA. I was so excited to get involved with the CASA program because I wanted to help the kids in the foster care system, but I just wasn't able to foster or adopt right now. And so CASA has been such a blessing in my life. It's challenging because you do have to watch these kids go through hard times, but the rewarding part is seeing them overcome the obstacles and being able to just be with them throughout their lives each and every day, talk to them about their school, about what's going on in their lives, and being a part of changing their lives. A small part, but an important part. Being a court-appointed special advocate, or CASA, is such a unique role because you're not there as a representative for the government or a representative for the parents. You're there specifically and solely for the child. I know for me, when I go to visit my child, so excited when they say, my CASA's coming, my CASA's coming. That just means so much to me. CASA was my next step. What's yours?
Hey guys, it's Josh and Erica. We want to share with you what has led us on the journey to foster.
I've been interested in adoption from a young age. I always knew growing up that my father was adopted. My grandparents were a cornerstone in our family for Christ. They raised my dad and his sister, reading the Bible every night as a family together. They based all of their decisions, their whole life was centered around Christ. So about 25 years ago, my dad was able, through a series of really divine events, able to find his biological parents. So I was around 10 years old and we all flew up to Michigan to meet them. We met my grandparents, great-grandparents. My dad has 2 sisters and a half-brother. And it's really neat to see where you come from. But it really opened our eyes to how grateful we were for my dad's adoption. My biological grandparents are not believers. My grandfather got 2 girls pregnant at the same time. And so my dad has a half-brother who's just a couple of days apart from him. And to think that how quickly or how easily it could have been for them to give the half-brother up and keep my father, that would have changed his life dramatically. It would have changed my life. I wouldn't be here today, and I definitely would not have the relationship I do with Christ today if it had not been for my grandparents. They were so influential in molding me and who I am today, and the influence that Christ has in my life. And so I just pray that one day soon, hopefully, that we'll get to do the same for a child, just show them the love of Christ.
We just finished our foster to adopt training as of yesterday, and to say anything, it was unique. It was quite an experience, but it definitely opened my eyes, and I would imagine your eyes as well, to what these children are going through, the experiences that they are having all the way from before they're even born to even at such a young age, and just how they need a stable home environment. They need the love of Jesus Christ to be shown and displayed to them. And so, that definitely is very important to us in our decision to move forward with the desire to foster and hopefully to adopt.
This is our next step. What's yours?
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jared.
And we're the Trahans. And we just finished our foster to adopt classes. So we've been married for 8 years. The first couple of years were pretty rocky, you would agree. But praise the Lord, He just really helped us through those first few years. And so After those first couple of years, we thought maybe try to start a family, and we really didn't think just anything of it. We just tried, and nothing ever really came of it. And so that's when we decided to go to the doctor and try to figure out what was going wrong. And they really just shared with us that it wouldn't be possible to have children unless there was some type of medical intervention involved. And so at the time, we just decided to wait. We just really didn't feel just the Lord's peace about that and pursuing that, and just felt like if the Lord wanted to, He could. And so we just kept praying about that and just praying through that. And then more years passed. And so after many years of unsuccess, then we finally decided to pursue some type of fertility treatment. And so we pursued that probably about a couple of years ago, and was unsuccessful at that. That can be really hard, and it was really hard. There were a lot of days, a lot of times that I really struggled through that, and struggled to just wonder what the Lord had for us and why I couldn't do what I was created or felt like I was made to do. The one desire that you have, to be able to have a child and not be able to. And so I struggled and just wrestled with that a lot, and struggled and wrestled with a lot of lies, just thinking that there was something wrong with me, or there was something that I had done that the Lord was just withholding from me. But through His Word and through pursuing Him, He really has just given me so much peace in these recent years. Peace of knowing that the Lord is good, and He is good to me, that He doesn't withhold anything from us, that He loves us, that His plan is best, even though I can't understand, even though I can't fathom why He would choose not to bless our family with a child. But I know that what He has is better. I really feel like once the Lord helped me have that breakthrough in Him and that surrender of that thing, I just really felt a peace about just opening this door.
So we recently completed the classes for Foster to Adopt, and they were very, very informative. A lot of things that you don't even think about when you're dealing with the foster system, about what the kids not only have been through, but the requirements for taking in a kid from the state is very eye-opening. A lot of us are blessed with households and families that have great upbringing. I was raised by a dad who was a pastor, and a mom who was a stay-at-home mom who really raised us and took care of us. But a lot of these kids just don't have that chance. They don't have that opportunity at all. And so you're really taking in someone who needs the love of God shown to them. And so really the foster classes are a great way to see into the lives of these kids before you ever even have one. So we have a lot of friends that are in foster care. It's just really good to see how the Lord's using them in the lives of these kids just to make a real difference. I would say probably my greatest fear is having a kid and then having the kid taken away from me. And so that's something that I'm definitely going to have to give to the Lord and definitely work through, just because I know His plans are greater. And one of our good friends, he would always tell me that even if they had the kid for a week, that the Lord had a plan for that, and that they were supposed to in some way love on this kid in a way that they couldn't have otherwise.
This is our next step.
What's yours?
Yeah, I'll give it up for them. That's awesome, isn't it? And that's honestly just the icing on the cake, if you will, or maybe the tip of the iceberg would be a better way of saying that. There's other families in our church body as well who are either in the process of pursuing and beginning, or some of them are actually further along in that process and getting ready for a child to potentially be placed in their homes. Now, we have a very special guest as well this morning who's gonna share with us more on CASA. So if y'all welcome my sister, Aimee McCartney.
It's tough to follow all those guys, and they got to do it by video, and makes it easier maybe, I don't know. All right, so Josh gave me a few minutes to talk with y'all about CASA. 4 years ago, I had never heard of CASA. I was beginning to consider running for judge, and one of my duties as a judge would be to handle juvenile matters. And so I began to talk with other judges around the state and look at programs that they had, and one of the ones that nearly every parish in Louisiana had, except DeSoto, was CASA. And so I was very intrigued by that. And fast forward a couple of years, we were able to secure a CASA office for DeSoto Parish. And so they opened officially in July of 2018, and that was a really exciting time. And so since that time, we have trained in DeSoto Parish 13 CASAs. And that may not sound like a lot, but it is. We're very thankful for every single one of them. And I'm super proud to say that over half of our CASAs actually attend Fellowship Community Church. So give yourselves a hand. We also, our CASAs serve 21 children. And so I want to tell you, there are 21 DeSoto Parish children who are in foster care right now. That may not sound like a lot, but one is too many, okay? But I want to tell you a little bit about some of those children and how the CASAs have impacted their lives. So of the 21 children, we have 6 who are siblings. So let that sink in for just a second. So 6 children came from one family, and they are in foster care. There are actually 8 children in that family. The oldest child has already aged out of foster care. The youngest child was born after the 6 were placed in foster care, and the infant has been able to remain in the home for the moment. But so 6 children, there are 5 girls and 1 boy. And so it's very difficult to place that many siblings together, as you can imagine. And so what has happened is that those children, their 5 girls are placed in one home together, and the boy is in a different home. They're between the ages of about 2 and 13, and their CASAs are actually Tom and Teresa Gaddy. And they attend church with us. And so just so that you know, anybody can be a foster parent. Their foster mother is in her 70s. I think like 72 or 76. 72, okay. She's 72, and she has 5 very rambunctious, precious little girls. When they come to court, they're all dressed identically. It's the most precious thing that you have ever seen. But her story is, the foster mother's story, she shared with me about 6 months ago, is that she was in foster care herself. And so she made the decision then that when she became able, that she was going to serve as a foster parent because she had experienced that. And she was separated from her siblings because she was ill at the time, and she needed to be closer to medical facilities, which meant that they were in a rural area. She needed to be in Shreveport, and so she was separated from all of her siblings. And so her heart's desire is to make sure that large sibling groups are able to stay together. And so that is what she specializes in. All of the sibling groups that she gets are multiple siblings together. And so she was only able to take 5, but they were able to keep the 5 girls together. The one boy, he was originally with an aunt. That situation wasn't much better than the situation he had come out of, and so we were able to move him into a different home, and he's really flourishing in his new home in Caddo Parish. We have 3 children of our 21 who are currently in trial home placements back with their biological parents. So the goal is normally that we're going to try to return them to a better parenting situation with their biological parents. That does not always happen. But so 3 of those, what we'll do is I'm very cautious about sending them back home because they've obviously not succeeded previously as parents. And so we'll do a trial home placement so that we're able to watch and monitor the kids and make sure that everything's going well before we fully release them back to their parents. We have 4 children right now who are available for adoption. 3 of those are teenage boys, and they do not want to be adopted. And so what I have, as you can imagine, you're a teenage boy, you kind of feel like you're your own man, I guess, and you don't feel like you need to be adopted. And so what I have 2 of them in particular, Jill New is actually, and she attends FCC, she is their CASA. And so the commitment that I've made to them is, I will not force you to be adopted. Because what was happening is, particularly with one of them, he had been in 5 what they consider adoptive placements, which is basically once you're freed to be adopted, your parents' rights have been terminated, they put you in a home where they think that you could be adopted in that home. And so what would happen every single time was, as they got very close to the time for the adoption to occur, he would disrupt the placement because he does not want to be adopted. He wants to go back home. And so what I have told him, he's been now in this one home, it's actually in DeSoto Parish, for over a year, and he's been doing really, really well. And so I've promised him I will not force you to be adopted. He likes the people, they love him, they would adopt him, but he doesn't want to be adopted, and so that's okay. The last child is really special. Mindy Seekford is actually his CASA, and he's 11 years old. And this is just really a true testament to when your next step impacts somebody else's next step. So he has had a very troubled life. He was, born into a family. The parents were not good parents, and their rights were terminated. He was adopted by, it was actually he and a brother. They were adopted by a great aunt and great uncle. And they were not good parents either. And so their rights were terminated about 2 years ago. And so this little boy's brother, who's a year younger than him, was adopted within the last 6 months. And so this young man is 11. He's had, like I say, a lot of problems, and he's kind of been a difficult child, somewhat, some would consider. And so what they have done is we thought that it would be best for him to be in a therapeutic placement, which is a special foster family who has specialized training to handle difficult children, and that just was not available. They looked and looked and just couldn't find it. And so he was placed in a home, and I know his CASA was concerned about that home at first, and we talked a lot about it within the system and, trying to find other places, but this was the place for him for that moment. And so these people are church-going folks. They live a couple of parishes away. And we recently learned that their pastor and his wife are interested in adopting this little boy. And so the people who go to church there, their step, to foster a difficult child has now led to their pastor and his wife, for the first time ever, considering adoption. And so they're now going through the same classes that Josh and Erica and the Trahans have gone through to adopt. Now, the young boy doesn't know this. So on Sundays, they've been having him, he comes over to the pastor's house just to play, he thinks. But they're really making sure, that he gets along with them and they get along with him, and it's been going really, really well. And so I'm just so excited because I know in the next few months we're going to have an adoption for that little boy that was really kind of considered unadoptable. So it's just, yes, that is awesome. You can clap. Yeah. Miss Linda McClellan, who was up on the screen just a minute ago, her child is a 16-year-old girl, and this is not a knock on homeschool. So if you homeschool, I'm sure you actually school your children. This young girl's family did not actually school her, and so she had not been in a normal school setting since the 2nd grade. And when we received her into the foster care system, she was tested, and she tested between a 2nd and 4th grade level, 16 years old, which is devastating. I mean, there's really very few paths in life that the 16-year-old girl can take. It's likely prostitution and drugs, if you can't read or write or do any of those things. And so her foster family has been working really diligently with her. They to teach her to count. They helped her make change. She makes change with money. And so, because she didn't even know how to do that. And so that's how they've just in little things have worked with her. And Miss Linda has been just really phenomenal in trying to encourage her. She's going in some schooling. Of course, there's not a normal school setting that you can go into when you're at 2nd grade level, but you're 16. And so there's been some special accommodations that we've made for her to help her catch up. So just a few of the stories. We have one young lady, she's in Natchitoches, and she's been in foster care before I was elected, so more than 3 years, and she doesn't really have much family support at all. And so her CASA, she gets where she's at a group home facility in Natchitoches. And so every night she gets 3 minutes for a phone call, and at least 3 nights a week she calls her CASA, which is just so awesome to me. She and her CASA are very best friends. I mean, they talk about everything. Her CASA has really strongly advocated for her. Particularly, she wants to be a vet tech. And it was not in the cards at that point for her to take her ACT, but she really needs to take her ACT to be able to get into school. And so her CASA brought that to my attention during some of our court proceedings, and so we were able to get her to take her. She took her ACT about a month ago. She didn't do as well as we had hoped, but now she's in some tutoring classes to help her take it again. And so that's just a small sampling of what the CASAs can do and how they're able to really pour into the lives of young people. One thing I forgot to mention this morning that I want to make sure I mention to y'all, of the 21 children that we have from DeSoto Parish in foster care, only one is placed in DeSoto Parish. We have hardly any foster care placements in DeSoto Parish. We have hardly any families who offer foster care to children. And so that's something that we really desperately need. We think that part of that is due to the fact that in 2013, our Department of Children and Family Services office, our local office in Mansfield, was closed due to statewide budget cuts. And so they think that that is part of it, just because nobody knows about foster care. It's just not really impacting them. I'm proud to say that in January, we believe that we'll have a new DCFS office opening in Mansfield. So thank your police jury who has invested the money to provide an office for them. DCFS anticipates that our numbers will double once they have a local office here, because there will be the availability for local reporting. It's not that child abuse or neglect is not happening, it's that it's not being reported. And so once there is a local office, they anticipate that those numbers will go up. But I also want to give kind of a shout out to a couple of organizations. Number one, the Sheriff's Office. We have a phenomenal Sheriff's Office. They have really awesome juvenile investigators who take this stuff to heart, and they really pour into all of their investigations. Also, our teachers. We get the majority of our reporting from our school board teachers because they're seeing it on the front lines. They're seeing the children that are coming in exhibiting signs of abuse or neglect, and so it's really vital to have our teachers watching out, and we're really thankful for them. And also for, like I said, our police jury, because they are investing tax dollars, which is all of you taxpayers, thank you, tax dollars in an office. And so I'm going to close with this just to say, consider your next step. Everybody has said that, but number one, I want you to pray about it. And just think about how your next step impacts maybe somebody else's next step. And you can begin little bitty, and then you can work your way up. But there is a place for every one of you to contribute to the children in our parish and in our world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so I don't really need to say anything, do I? I mean, we've got quite a bit of information here. I just think it's such a blessing to be a part of a church that is seeking to make a difference. And that's why I think it's been such a good journey. Because for us personally, you caught me a few years ago, I would have never, ever have thought to foster or to adopt. That's just not my natural wiring or tendency. And I don't know, it was Orphan Sunday and things just like this, and being inspired by other families who are stepping out of what would, I guess, be called a comfort zone, and saying, Lord, what would you have me to do? This life can be a lot of fun if you're willing to trust God in the process of making some decisions. And so I want to go over just a few things just quickly for the sake of time. But the scripture this morning, as I mentioned earlier, hopefully it's in your Bible. If you don't have a Bible, it's on the screen. It's 1 John chapter 3, verse 16 through 18. And I really hope that this just touches our heart. This is God's word, and here we go. By this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. So there's three things in your worship guide or in your digital notes if you want to take them down. First is this: love is known by the sacrifice. Love is known by the sacrifice. Everything we've talked about today, whether it's Foster Family Connect or whether it's CASA or whether it's fostering or potentially adopting, in every one of those scenarios, whether it's a big thing or a small thing to you, nonetheless, you're saying, here I am, Lord. Use me. Here I am, Lord. I'll take a step, Lord. I'll step out of my comfort zone. And as she mentioned, the young lady, or younger, older lady, that's 72, in the first service, she mentioned that she's been doing foster care for 40 years. Is that right? 40 years of her life has been dedicated to helping those who need help. And so again, I don't know where the journey is going to take my family. I do know that the kids are not the only ones who are going to be impacted, whoever comes into our home. Our kids are going to see the love of Jesus Christ being poured out to others. And our kids are going to witness what God's doing in the other children's lives. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like it's so much bigger than us. And life has so much more joy and fullness when we're willing to say, Lord, just use me however you would use me. Love is known by the sacrifice. And secondly here is let our actions tell the story of Jesus' love. It says in verse 17 and 18, if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does the love of God abide in him? So let us not talk always about the things that we want to do, rather than saying, what can we do? I completely understand that we can't do it all. So when you hear the number 153 million, or when you hear the number of all these kids who need homes, I understand that maybe right now the first thing that you need is just to be made aware. Maybe this Sunday the only thing that you need, and maybe your next step, as Aimee was mentioning, is that you would, one, be made aware, and two, honestly ask God, pray to God, Lord, what would you have me to do? Because some of you are in a position that you can do something in some area, in some way, in some capacity. We all have something we can do, something we can contribute. And third and close is this: your good deeds, hear me out loud, matter far more than you know. Your good deeds, those little bitty actions that you think honestly don't make that big of a difference. If you've noticed, as she's sharing about the children, as we've been going through this foster classes and to hear about some of the testimonies of children who have not only come from these broken homes and potentially were never going to have an opportunity to even make it honestly in life without doing some pretty horrible things, is to watch and to hear how they are now able not only to stand on their 2 feet, but how they're also advocating for other children who are going through the same system and the same problems. And I just want to say this to you: it takes one person. It takes just one person to, again, make that one ripple that keeps on going. And as Christians, we know that that ripple in particular is when someone comes to know Christ and potentially comes into our homes or supported by money that y'all have worked hard to make so that we can help these things take place. When that one ripple goes throughout all of eternity, I guarantee you, you will not doubt that the time that was given or the money that was given or just your love in general that was poured out, it was not wasted. Not a single thing that we put into the hands of our Lord and Savior is wasted. Ephesians 2:10 tells us so clearly, for we are His workmanship. And what have we been? Created in Christ Jesus for good works. Here's the cool part. And God planned those beforehand that we would walk in them. Y'all could spend the rest of the week on that one verse. God planned those beforehand for you to walk in them. Right now we're sitting, and there's a time to sit. There's a time to soak. There's a time to be informed. There's a time to make decisions. There's a time to use discernment that the Lord has given us. There's a time to pray. But when the Lord gives you a clear next step, a clear next move, then it's time to stand. Then it's time to obey. And we leave the result to God. I don't know where you're at. And I don't know if any of this has even resonated with you, but I do pray that at least, if anything, you would be now made aware and that a seed will have been planted into your heart, and you would begin either as a family or as an individual to begin to say, okay, here's where we are. Here's where I'm at. Lord, what's my next step? On the screen behind me are the 3 things today, because when we say those big numbers, you're just like, I can't do anything. Okay. here's some small ways that you can do something. And that's what we always want to do as a church. Let's not leave it gray. Let's leave it black and white. If you want to do something, today is the day you can do something. It could be something small. It could be something monumental to you. Listen, it's between you. It's between God, okay? One of the first things that we do, and again, this is just a way, if you're saying, listen, I am impacted, I want to make a difference. I heard about the carriers and the clothes and the food and the Foster Connect and all the, I've heard about those things. That sounds amazing. Well, if you would like to give, we have envelopes here on the table. If that's you and you're saying, I want to send money in that direction specifically for that cause, or if you want to do text to give, we make it easy for all of our digital people in here, okay? Text FCC Family to 77977. And if nothing else, just screenshot it on your phone if that's something you want to think about, pray about. This is where that money's going, is specifically to help those families. And she mentioned earlier with the new building being opened in Mansfield that the opportunity for us, hear those words, opportunity for us as followers of Jesus Christ is going to be more readily available for us to help, for us to make an impact in this community. As she said, one is too many, but as long as there is one, we'll help. And if there's 10 or if there's 20 or if there's 40 or if there's 100, we will help. We'll do something. We won't just talk about it. We'll act on it. There's two other things today that if you would like to get more information, that's why we have this table set up. Some of the people that you saw in the video are going to be there, and my encouragement is not to just go out of the door, just spend even a moment, just say, hey, thank you for sharing. Maybe grab a pamphlet, find out some information over here. But CASA is a great next step for some of you. It's one visit a month. There's training that you'll go through. They'll fully prepare you. I'm honored as a church, we're going to host their Christmas party here. We're not going to be able to be a part of it because it's for them and the families, but we're getting to host it, and that's just an honor to me to be able to be a part of that as a church to do that. But CASA might be your next step, and maybe you want to join the journey that we've decided to go on, which is foster and potentially, hopefully, Lord willing, to adopt. Don't know where you're at, and we might be revisiting this in 3 years, and you said, hey, you remember a couple of years ago when you said that seed? Well, I never planned it that way. Well, I'll tell you what, you have your plans and God has His ways. Be faithful to the calling He's put on your life. You'll never regret a moment of it. Let's stand.